So our next talk is by Dr. Pradeep Gupta. Dr. Pradeep Gupta has served as mayor of the city of South San Francisco in 2017 after winning elections to the city council in 2012. Prior to that, Dr. Gupta served on the city's planning commission since 2009 and was appointed as its chair in 2011. Beyond the city limits, Dr. Gupta has worked closely with a lot of regional planning agencies. And in addition to his public service since 2009, Dr. Gupta also boasts a 30-year career in the electric power industry in USA. And he has served as principal at a number of consulting agencies between 1990 and 1998. In fact, he is an alumnus from IIT Madras. He did his electrical engineering from IIT Madras in 1964 and then went on to do PhD from Purdue University in electrical engineering. So without wasting much time, I'd like to invite the speaker to the stage, please.
Well, good evening, all of you. Thank you. Actually, it's very difficult to follow Venki after that inspiring talk. As a matter of fact, many of the quotes he made, I would like to use them in my talk because I think he had captured the essence of what it is all about being successful in life. But before I start, I would like to introduce my wife of 47 years, Kumkum Gupta. She is also an IITian, but from Roorkee, not Madras. And also, before I say anything, I'd like to tell you how gratifying it is to come to your alma mater after 50-some years and see the growth, the development, and the achievements which you started as a seed when in 1964 as a part of the student body of first batch. When I think about those days and I think about all you, I think it was a very successful journey that has taken place. And I'm so happy to be back here. As a matter of fact, I mentioned it to somebody in the last 1.5 days I've been here. It's like visiting a temple that you always wanted to. And I also wanted to thank the enablers for me to do that. And besides Director Bhaskar, who visited USA last year and had a little chat with us, he inspired and encouraged me to be here today. I'd like to also offer my sincere thanks to the Dean of Alumni Affairs and International, Professor Nagarajan, who is sitting right here. I find him to be completely unassuming personality who carries so much burden on his shoulders that I'm really, really grateful that I got some encouragement from him to be here. And I also want to tell you that in the last 1.5 days, I met so many of you with so many names, with so many ambitions, with so many goals, and so many results to show. I wish I could remember all of that and take it with me as a one single capsule I can repeat when I go back to America and tell them how wonderful things are happening here. You have to be proud to be part of IIT Madras. And I'm not putting down any other IIT, by the way. Only the reason I'm saying IIT Madras because I don't know anything about them. But what I see here, in your faces, the students here, the goals and ambitions they have at this young age, and their teachers who understand that ambition and trying to propagate them in the right direction is just inspiring. So I want to thank all the people, and I'm not going to list any names here because I'm sure I'm going to miss somebody and it will look like that I missed somebody. So I'm not going to give any names except those two, the Director Bhaskar and Professor Nagarajan. But I also am expressing my thoughts and my thanks to everybody else. My talk is going to be a little bit different in structure, but basically carries the same message that Venki gave. it's better to give than to take, in a true sense. But before we go to the message, let's go to the next slide. If I get it, okay. By the way, before I start anywhere and talk about myself, I wanted to officially congratulate IIT Madras for being the #1 ranking engineering institute in India. Isn't that great? And I'm so proud to be one of the alumni of that institute. It's not only #1 institute in India in terms of engineering, but it's #1 in patents filed, it's #1 in India in funded research projects, and #1 in deep technology startups. But we did not mention it's also almost, I don't know it's fact or not, #1 in alumni donations coming to IIT Madras. And that indicates the hard work and the pride the alumnus living outside feel for IIT Madras. And IIT Madras is not buildings, it's not the land, it's not the label, it's the people, it's the students, it's the accomplishments. That's IIT Madras. So what I'm going to be talking about today is pretty simple. I think many of you have come here to listen to me. How the hell did I become mayor of a city in United States after graduating from IIT Madras? And actually, if I were you, I would be surprised too. But when I tell you the story, it's not that difficult, or it's not that unusual. Things happen like that, and I'll tell you what I did in order to facilitate your understanding of my career. I'm going to give you a little bit of glimpse of that city I managed last year and this year. And if I win my election in November, for another 4 years. If I lose, I'll come back here and tell you the old stories. And one of the things about South San Francisco is that it's the world's largest biotechnology company cluster. It is, and when I say largest cluster, we're not talking about one company or two companies or three companies. We have 215 biotechnology companies all around in one small area. You know the total area of South San Francisco is 9.1 square miles. And out of that, we have one whole section which is reserved for biotechnology campuses. Now, some of you might be confused. South San Francisco, are we a little part of San Francisco which you all know about and we are just talking about a little part? No. We are a completely independent city. The name is South San Francisco, but there's no connection with San Francisco. San Francisco is located where it is. There is another couple of cities in between us. And then South San Francisco comes in. And people who have gone to that area of San Francisco, when they drive past from their hotels in San Francisco to the San Francisco airport, see on the hill a sign. South San Francisco, the industrial city. So everybody knows us there. So I'm talking of that city. So I'll give you a little bit of glimpse of what that city is, which has created such a big cluster. And then, finally, I have a hope and glimmer in my eye that with the help of you all, researchers, faculties, institute administration, and other people in the government and bureaucracy will work with us to perhaps create a link between the great ideas of IIT Madras and the existing biotechnology cluster in South San Francisco. So perhaps in the future, many of you will come, share your knowledge, become partners there. Perhaps these companies will come to you here. And perhaps financial VCs like Venki might think about creating a whole new structure of that link for the future to come. So I already told you that I'm 1964 double E major from IIT Madras. And at that time, our double E was not double E, we used to call it LC. I was electronics major, so we used to call it LC, light current. And everybody else in electrical engineering was called HC, heavy current. Those are the only two. And this was one of those quirky IIT Madras approach to doing things in those days. But anyway, I graduated in 1964. Then in 1966, I got my first degree outside. I went to Purdue University right after my graduation here and got my master's degree, but in electrical power area, not electronics. And you would say, why did I change electronics to power area? Well, to tell you the truth, it's just the question of financing. I could get an assistantship, research assistantship in power area and not in electronics. And frankly, I didn't have the money to be there without assistantship, so I changed the area. I got interested in this power area so much that I continued studying or working on it and ended up getting a PhD in 1969, 5 years after I went to the United States. Just a footnote to this. I'm talking of Purdue University, which is in the heart of America, in the Midwest, Lafayette, Indiana, close to Chicago. And this is 1968, 69, where America was going through a metamorphosis. That was the time when Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy were murdered. That was the time when there was a lot of anti-Vietnam War effort was taking place. There were hippies everywhere. There was adulation for Indian sitar music. Beatles were playing sitar at that time. Everybody wanted to wear in America Nehru jackets to the parties. There were all kinds of things happening. And that was the time I went and graduated in America. And my first job was right in the middle of this change in California. My first job was in Palo Alto, which is close to Stanford. So moving from very straight, old-fashioned, Midwest, Purdue University, to coming to Palo Alto, which is close to San Francisco, was like day and night, like you have just gone to a different country completely. And that gave me an insight about the country, which I'll share with you later on, why it helped me later on. Then I ended up working for a power utility company for 8 years, Southern California Edison company. That's pretty much like power supply company. It's a private company. And there I ended up as manager of their planning department. And then in 1980, I thought that was not enough, so I went to a research institute called Electrical Power Research Institute, which was in Palo Alto. And this is the research branch of all electrical companies of the United States funding, non-governmental funding. It was a sponsored research institute with all the private companies funding it. And I think many efforts like that happen here too. And there I was able to look at the area of research beyond immediate needs, which I was taking care of in the utility business. But anyway, after that long career of 1980 to 1990, I thought, let's go look at the world. So I came out of EPRI, which we used to call Electrical Power Research Institute, and then I joined a consulting firm and was working for World Bank and USAID. That's the time when I was doing consulting work. I even visited Hyderabad to look at Andhra Pradesh Electrical Commission or Board because there were some projects going on there. I came to Jaipur at one time. I went to exotic places like Ghana in Africa because they were working with World Bank. And I went to Philippines and Indonesia, and I kind of pretty much covered the world, like Kazakhstan and all those kind of things. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. And then in 2005, I practically retired, happily living with one son, one daughter. They had both gone to Stanford. They were good jobs, and 4 grandchildren. 3 granddaughters, 1 grandson. And I thought that's the end of the life, and I was just enjoying myself. And during that time, the enjoyment was, I found out that and I was sharing that with somebody, there was so much pleasure in learning new things. I found out that even after PhD and working after 35 years in a field like electrical power area, at the end of this journey, I knew so much about a very narrow sliver of the world's knowledge, world experience. I found that I knew only 0.00001% of all the fun stuff that's going on in the world, and I had no idea how they did it. So I started picking new things, to learn new things. And one of those new things was to participate in theater. I became a theater producer. I used to make sets because I was interested in woodworking. And IIT Madras had trained me very well in being a good woodworker. So I produced theater plays, and we took plays like Girish Karnad's Tughlaq and all those big ones that are very successful in India. And up to 2010, I was pretty happy getting busy with the natak, with theater. And then I got a bug that something is not right. You know, this sense of fairness, sense of inquiry, sense of learning pushes you in directions that you never anticipated. I attended a seminar in 2008. And this seminar was sponsored by Packard Foundation. And it was at Cañada College, a local college. And that seminar was that we in the Bay Area, and I'm talking about the whole Silicon Valley area, are making so many successful businesses and are so much activity going on. We earned significantly good salary, and we are having a lot of things that we wanted to do happening around us. But what about the people who serve us? People like nurses, people like school teachers, people like plumbers, people like craftsmen, people like firefighters, people like elementary teachers, school teachers. The Bay Area had become already a target of the world. Like everybody wanted to be in the Silicon Valley. The prices were very high, and these people who were needed for the regular life had no place to live in the Bay Area. They were living way out there, and they used to drive to the work in their old cars, which were very, spewing smoke from long distances. And the question was, are we as a community thinking about those people in our calculations? Do we ever think about society and community as a totality? Not just engineers, not just businesses, but also the people who help keep the life running in a city. So I went and complained about it to our city planning commission. I said, are we as a city looking at those needs? And frankly, I found nobody was looking at it. They said, well, somehow it's going to take care of itself. Excuse me. So I said, no, that's not good enough. So I started pestering them. Every time there was a public meeting, talking about housing, talking about roads, talking about parks, I used to say, what about the people who can't afford to be here? So anyway, they ended up saying, okay, you join the planning commission. You keep on bugging us. So I ended up as a member of the planning commission. And for 3 years I was in the planning commission. I became chairman of that at one time. And then came my moment of truth, and I got elected to the city council after having been appointed for a year in the absence of one of the seats which was vacated. So I had a 1 year of exposure to the public before the election as an appointed council member. And just to give you an idea, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, the city governments in US are run by councils, city councils, which usually have 5 members or 9 members or 7 members, some odd number, which make the decision in a way to vote on issues. But they are the whole soul. They make the laws of the city. They figure out how these laws are enforced, because the police reports to them, the fire people report to them, the staff all reports to them, the attorney, the legal, everything. They report, they are the ones who make all their decisions, those 5 members. And one of those members is elected every year by those 5 members to be the mayor of the city for the next year. So you have to work with those other members during this time, but be likable enough to be elected as a mayor if you want to become a mayor. It's one of those things like happens in academics, like where head of the department has to come from within the staff, within the academic professors. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go along if we have time. First thing I'd like to tell you, and I'm sure that Venki will agree with me, Indo-Americans in America right now are very successful. As a community, I've heard so many times that we are the model immigrants. Like we are the most likable or most successful model immigrant community of any community that has come. Our average income is higher than the average income of the native borns, including white people, Caucasian people. We have founded more technology companies than immigrants from UK, China, Taiwan, and Japan combined. As a matter of fact, Venki knows more about it than I do. 10 to 20% of all tech startups have Indian founders in the team somewhere. Top positions in big companies like Google, Microsoft, Cisco, Oracle, Adobe, all these which you know about have Indians. But the only one area in which Indians have not done very well is political arena. Now, you will say, what's the big deal about being involved in political arena? And I'll tell you why. First, let me tell you why it's necessary to be successful in political arena. When I went to America to study, my fathers and mother told me that go there, get your degree, and come back and work. So I was there for, what, couple of 3-4 years, whatever it is it takes. And so did many of us who went there in 1960s. So we really didn't care what the politics was, who's making the rules, who's making the laws. We didn't care if anybody celebrates Diwali or not. We were happy with Christmases. We did not care whether we had a particular, like people don't confuse us with, like a terrorist, just because you're wearing a turban like a Sikh, you are a terrorist, etc. But now we are settled here. Our children and grandchildren are American citizens. What we want to do is to continue our culture in America. We want to continue our traditions. We want to continue all the good things that our culture carries with it. And I'll tell you, during the progression of generations, automatically it erodes, it dilutes, it goes away. Within 2 or 3 generations, it goes away. So it's very essential that our future generations should have their cultural values maintained. In a political arena, you have to have presence on the table in order for your values to be considered in a fair basis. It's not enough to count on others to give you your fair share. You may get it, you may not get it, but it's very essential in the long term to have presence on the table. So have your views completely, forcefully considered, forcefully. So in my opinion, it was very important that political arena should be as successfully entered by Indian diaspora as business, medical, doctors, wealth, investing. So that was one reason. Second reason I think in the political arena is I'm not saying that we Indians are not really involved in politics. We love to talk about politics. We spend hours dissecting everybody's politics. We love it. That's in our blood. But when it comes to action, when it comes to throwing your hat in the ring, when it comes to winning, working on an election and getting elected, we don't think it's worth it. We think somebody else can get elected and we'll give them some X number of dollars as a campaign fund and they will take care of us in the future. That's all our modus operandi is. So I challenge that. I think we as Indians, we as trained Indians, we carrier of our culture in a different country, we are the ones who are responsible to make sure that our future generations have that power behind them when they grow up. So I already told you about that. I went through this progression. Let me tell you some funny stories about getting elected. One of the things, by the way, Kumkum, my wife here, was my campaign manager, and we were both new. We didn't know how to run election. And let me tell you what the challenge was. South San Francisco as a city has 67,000 people, about 20,000 voters, if you will, 20,000 voters. And out of those 67,000 people, there are only about 100 who are Indo-Americans. So all the rest of the people have nothing to do with being Indo-American. 1/3 of those people are Italian families who have been there since 1920s when the city started, and they are very active, Italian. 1/3 of the population is Asian, mostly Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos, those. 1/3 are Hispanics, like Mexicans and other parts of South America. And then we have 100 people from India. So when we started the election, and because we are both engineers, first thing we did was that we had limited resources how to reach people. Because in voting, it's not a question of making speeches. It's the question of making a person convinced that then when they go into the voting booth, when they have that voting paper on their hands and their pen, they should think of your name rather than somebody else's name. At that time, you're not there. They won't sign against your name just because you're standing there to make you happy. At that time, they have to think of you to get elected. So you have to do face-to-face talk. Suppose you are a voter and you don't know me at all. Like, who is he? It's not only that he looks different, but his name is funny. Pradeep Gupta, never heard about it. Some of them know Gupta because there's a personality called Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Sanjay Gupta on CNN. He has made Gupta name very famous, so I don't have to spell Gupta again. But, so you have to go and knock on the doors. Now, if you have 20,000 doors, then you have to knock on them and talk to them and let them know who you are and why you want to run and why you are better than 7 others who are running against you. You have to be a little bit systematic about it. And being an engineer, I think we did an analysis, like statistical analysis. So first thing we did was that we found all the voters who have voted continuously for the last 4 elections. Because there are a lot of voters who never vote, who never vote. So what's the use of wasting time? So we went to those homes where the voters had voted in the last 4 elections for definite. And the idea was probability is that in the next election they will vote again. Number 2, we figured out where the voters were, the type of voters who are young and who are, looking for change and looking for dynamic kind of things. They will look at you as something like a new option. Then we found people who are public leaders, like Hispanics, Mexicans. they would listen to somebody who talks their language and who's their leader. So I went to him and I explained to him what I'm trying to do. By the way, my whole campaign was based on the theme of education. My theme was that good education is the root solution to most of the problems in the world for future generations. The poverty, the housing, the understanding comes because education is not complete. And the reason why we Indians are so successful in what we do here in India and outside in the world is because our culture values education very high. No matter what the parents have or have not, nobody will deny their children education. It's like considered to be one of those things that we all are obliged to do, no matter what. That's why all of you, like you're here, not all of you come from very wealthy family. I did not. We were just kind of middle class people. But somehow that we managed, but education is put very high. So my campaign promise was, or campaign message was, education. Let's improve education, especially for underserved families. The families cannot afford to send their children to private schools because the public schools are bad. Let's improve public schools so that everybody gets quality education. So on that theme, I went door to door, and I was not the only one. My friends from Natak, from theater group, they came in hordes. They would come on the weekends, and they would say, tell us which door to knock today on your behalf. So they will take pamphlets from me, and they will go knock. So Kumkum created maps. We divided the city into groups, that for this Sunday, this particular group is going to cover this, and we'll do this, we'll do that. And she used to get those, and we used to get feedback reports, like what was the reaction from those homes when they knocked it. Then the other one was endorsement. Like we got endorsement from these Mexican leaders. We got endorsement from labor unions after the interviews. We got endorsement from League of Women Voters. We got endorsement from police and fire unions. We got endorsement from the newspapers. By the way, that's funny. In newspapers in US, a lot of people read in newspapers their recommendation for the votes, and 90% time they will vote for that because they don't bother to read themselves all the analysis and etc. So it's very important to get recommended by a newspaper, but the newspapers are very hard to deal with. They will have one interview for every candidate to come, and they will have editorial board really grill you very hard. And they will try to figure out where to poke hole in your theory, and they will put it out in the newspaper next day. So it can either bake you or make you. So anyway, I got necessary endorsements, and it got going. And I tell you, during the whole campaign cycle, we never felt that we will lose. Like you were saying, we never felt that we are doing something which is impossible. We never felt, just because there was no Indian ever to be elected in that city, just because there was never an engineer ever elected to that city council, that I will not win. It never entered our mind. We actually used our background to our benefits. And actually people said, you're an engineer. You really think that you want to do this? I said, yes. They said, what will you do that's different? And I said, because I have done project management, I have done multiple, multi-objective, decision-making approach, those kind of things, all the paraphernalia that we talk about, jargon. And somehow that it clicked. So the result was, on the night of the election, I got elected. I had a lot of people who had come and worked for me. We took pictures, etc. It was a fun time. But what are the work that we did? Just to give you a little bit of glimpse on the kind of work we do as mayor and council members, as I said, we make the laws. Anybody can, where we will allow a building to be built. If you're starting a new biotechnology company, you can't just go build anywhere. There's specific places. It's called zoning. We also are judicial. If somebody is not following the rules and laws of the city, the council member decide how much to punish that particular in terms of penalties, etc. And we also administer our financing, taxes. We can create new taxes for the city if we need the money, if we can justify it. We also, as I said, govern our police and fire. And that means that we also get complaints. As a public servant, you can be rest assured, everybody who's happy with the service will not call you, will not let you know that they're happy. But anybody who's unhappy with your service will send you emails, will put it on the Facebook, will put it on the tweet, they will put on the LinkedIn, everywhere. That will be there as if that is the only thing you do, bad things. So that's part of the politics. So I want to show a little bit about the city of South San Francisco. Can we have that movie rolling? Just to give you a glimpse of what city I'm talking about. So I got a 3-minute video which we use to do commercialization, attract new companies to come to our city. I thought that you won't mind seeing that. Is the sound coming too? Oh, sound is not.
Yeah, 1 second. It's not connected.
I'm sure that in IIT we'll solve the problem.
We'll play it after some time, sir, the moment the sound engineer comes.
I'm sorry?
We'll play it after some time, after the sound engineer comes. He's just on his way, the sound engineer. So
Oh, there's.
we just play it in 5 minutes or so.
Oh, but I need to have the presentation.
Okay, sure.
Anyway, in the meantime, while they're fixing that up, anybody has any questions on what I have said so far? Yes, please. Please get up so I can hear you.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you to the mayor of San Francisco. And as you part of campaign, you said you found some section of people who are not voting, right? So did you see as an opportunity to convert and convince them and count as your voters?
Oh, the question, like you heard, was how did you convince the people who did not approve or did not like what we were saying, right?
Yeah. So did you see an opportunity to create a new voters
Yeah.
in your favor?
Yes. Well, when you are campaigning, you have to accept that there will be some people who will not vote for you. You have to accept. If you want to go for 100%, you will never run. That's impossible. So we do the calculations that we need this many votes, and these many votes, you can go either way. So we try, but we don't really work just on those focusing, because that could be a disaster. If you just focus on a losing side, yeah, you're gone.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
Could you please tell us about what were your ambitions and goals when you were doing your PhD?
What was the?
What were your ambitions and goals when you were doing your PhD?
Okay. As I told you, one of my biggest passion that I feel really helped me in all these years, by the way, I'm 75 years old. In all these years was passion of learning new things, passion of learning something new. I found myself that I enjoyed the most when I'm learning something new. And to me, the PhD was a way of learning and going deeper and deeper. My motivation was not well defined at the point when I got PhD, because my professor was thinking of getting me as a lecturer in the university, Purdue University. My own views were that there's a lot more things to be done in power area outside the university, in the industry. So that's where as a matter of fact, that gives me a chance to tell you a little bit about my experience of why I stayed in America, didn't come to India after my PhD. I did come to India in 1970 after my PhD. It was in 69, so I was working temporarily for a company. And I came to Planning Commission in New Delhi, and I went to them, and I had no idea about the bureaucracy. I just went to the officer somewhere, Planning Commission, and I said, "Sir, I have come here, and I just finished my PhD, and my area is power system planning under uncertainty using some stochastic, something like that. Is there any use for this kind of talent in India?" Because we're talking of 1970, and that time there were a lot of 5-year plans, and Planning Commission was doing things. And I got a very uninterested, non-answer, saying that, well, we have you all people go outside, get trained, you come back, you expect we'll just accept you. We have a lot of things, you have to stand in the line or something like that, which was very discouraging. As a matter of fact, I felt that I was so disappointed. And I don't know, out of that disappointment perhaps, or whatever it is, I went back. I went back to USA. I'm not saying that that experience is generic for everybody, but for me, that was the motivation to go back and work in USA after my PhD. Otherwise, I was coming here to settle and do whatever I can, a little bit. Any other question? Yes? Whenever you get the sound, let me know.
I wanted to know, initially when you were campaigning, you probably had a few core principles that you wanted to promote. But when, as you mentioned, you divided the districts into separate things, for each district, did you have a different pitching plan to get them on board?
No. One of the biggest mistake people make for the sake of immediate convenience is to keep on telling what people want. A story. Could I complete this, then we'll come back to it, okay. Is to tell people what they want to hear, because it's easy to get approvals. But in politics, it's poison. If you change your public comments from one day to the other, everybody loses trust in you. I think it's here in India or everywhere, like in America. If you become inconsistent in what you think, or at least public feels, nobody will vote for you. So you have to be consistent. Sometimes you find resistance, but you just let it go. Sometimes you find people who agree with you, that's great. But make your opinions clear to you and stick with them throughout. And that's a political thing that one needs to do. And you have to have passion for meeting new people and talking to them. Many of us here want the results, but don't want to work individually with people. Some of us love to talk to people and find out and really create what I call empathy, connection. When we talked to door, it was not just that we read a script. We went there, we talked to them, and I understood that why they were saying what they were saying. Some of them said, "I don't like the camera on the red light for speeding or red light infraction because I got this $400 ticket." And I said, "I understand that, but next time you'll be careful to go through the red light, because camera will catch you." And it is for those people. Remember, there's a high school close by and there's elementary school. The kids are crossing the street. Do you want any of the kids to be hit accidentally? So those are the kind of things that you do in politics. To answer your question, no, you don't tailor your message from street to street, but you tailor the way you talk about your message. Some places the message is very clear, some places you have to connect their situation with your message. When I talked about education, if I went and talked to somebody who has 2 jobs in order to maintain their family, has no time to be parent, and they have 3 kids, and they can't take care of them, and you talk about education, you're really hurting them. So in those cases, you empathize on what they're doing, and what you as a government can do to help them. So as I said, in public life, being a mayor or a city council, you have to work so that every individual is important, not majority. It's a fallacy to think that it's only the majority which really matter. It's the minority. It's the one person who is not represented as part of the majority. Majority people have taken a vote against something that will hurt the individual. But as a public office, it's my duty to make sure that that one person is not hurt because of that decision. Sometimes it's very unpopular, but in the long run, you'll come out ahead. And one of the things I found out in politics, I used to think that all politicians are corrupt. I used to think that all politicians are for themselves, and they're full of hot air, and they just basically promise. But the ones who are successful, at least in my area in California, are the ones who are truly, truly believer in public service. And because of that, they have gone further and further up. Senators, but in politics, nobody can do anything by themselves. They have to have a team. And once they find that you, like me, was a person who will keep message consistent and is willing to talk to people and has a way of empathizing, connecting with people, they would take me under their mentorship. So I got lots and lots of help from higher level politicians in our county, in our state government, and that's why I ended up working on many of the regional bodies. Because right now, I'm in the board which decides transportation and housing for 9 counties and 102 cities. Besides my own city, I have something to do with 102 cities of all the Northern California. That's because they believe that you can do the job and you have a way that they can trust you can do the job. So these politicians will mentor you, will bring you up. But you have to keep your head cool. You have to be consistent. You have to be trustworthy. Trust is the word, 4-letter word, which could be written in gold letters. Anyway, did that answer your question in a long way? Now we can have the movie? All right. Oh, sure, just 1 second.
How do you compare the politicians in America versus politicians in India, particularly in Tamil Nadu?
Well, to be very honest with you, I know the politicians in America, and not all of them are great. There are some exceptions. There are many exceptions that I know, but unfortunately, it would be very difficult for me to answer the question because I've been out of India for the last 50 years. So it will be I'll be making judgment without having any basis to make the judgment. So perhaps you can make your own mind. And perhaps your question is not a question, it's a commentary. All right, can we have the movie? Please enjoy the movie. Can you see it?
Located on the San Francisco Peninsula in San Mateo County, South San Francisco proudly remains the industrial city. A vibrant community of 65,000 residents, South San Francisco offers a comfortable place to live, the opportunity to work for more than 2,800 companies, and a place of recreation with an extensive public park system, swimming pools, and marina. South San Francisco has a great story to tell, a story of resilience, reinvention, revitalization, and success. 100 years ago, industrial giants started in South San Francisco as they embodied the cutting-edge, innovative technology of their day. From the Western Meat Company to the shipyards of Bethlehem Steel, the spirit of entrepreneurship burned brightly. By the 1930s, South San Francisco's meatpacking industry was shipping 88 million pounds of meat a year throughout the West. The shipyards played a major role supporting America in the war effort, employing 16,000 and constructing dozens of ships. By 1976, a scientific discovery would be made. and a business partnership formed that would forever alter the economic landscape of South San Francisco. Genentech hatched, and biotechnology was born. Today, Genentech employs over 11,000, and South San Francisco is home to more than 200 biotech companies, making it the biotech capital of the world. Stimulated by economic growth, South San Francisco reinvests into the community, providing a high quality of life for its residents, with a citywide public trail, beautiful art displays, and an active library and learning network. Through its diverse transportation system and transformative developments, South San Francisco continues to evolve in the 21st century. Samtrans bus service, Caltrain passenger rail, Bay Area ferry service play a vital role in the city's connectivity. In 2016, a new $55 million Caltrain station will begin construction, bringing passengers to the heart of the city. The historic downtown corridor has also brought vitality to South San Francisco, with more than 14 new restaurants and shops, along with 500 new residential units planned in the next 2 years. South San Francisco projects major developments underway over the next 5 years, including Centennial Village, which will create 285 housing units alongside a retail center. The thriving biotech community also continues to expand, with major developments underway, adding another 5 million square feet of biotech space. One such project, Britannia Cove, will include 7 mid-rise research and development buildings, retail, and open space. In addition, the development will include a 185-room AC Marriott hotel. South San Francisco assuredly attains meaningful and sustainable progress while remaining proudly the industrial city. South San Francisco's creativity and innovation is as strong as ever. South San Francisco honors the past and looks forward to a prosperous future.
All right. Let's go back to the same place. Yeah, right. Okay. Thank you. So we already talked about, the movie talked about the biotechnology capital of the world and all this sort of thing. Basically, the takeaway is that we have 215 companies. Some of them are as large as Genentech, Merck, Johnson & Johnson, and Amgen, but some of them are as small as 3 people, 4 people working on a startup. So the idea would be to somehow or other find a meaningful link between what I have seen at IIT Madras happening today and what is happening in our city, and try to make that link which will benefit both sides in a way that the science can flourish, that technology can flourish, and most importantly, and I think that's the really important part that has been emphasized to me again and again, the value of any science or any effort is how it benefits the ultimate people, the people for which all this work has been done, how that reaches them. So we are talking about really a lot of challenge for all of us, but I'm here to carry the message of this great place of learning and great place of innovation exists here in IIT Madras. And I'd like to take that message back to our 215 companies. And by the way, they like our government. We are pro-business government. As a matter of fact, we are so close to San Francisco, which is pretty anti-business. So they always make comparison on those two. This is just a map. These are some of the projects which we're working on, but I don't think that much of that will make much sense to you or is meaningful. But basically, there's 5 million square foot of new development taking place today, which equates into billions of dollars being invested in our city in the next 2-3 years. You just saw we are building a brand new train station for $55 million right now, which will be connecting our train station, like Caltrain, to a housing we are building for 80 homes for seniors, only seniors, at a very discounted price. Remember, I started my political career by asking questions where people will live who don't have money to live in the Bay Area, but how will we do without them if they didn't provide the service? So there's a need, and we need to find a solution. So we were able to work together in our city council, and we worked with Rotary Club, International Club, and they provide some funding. City gave the land free of cost, and we got this project. So now there'll be 80 homes, which will be for senior means old people, which will be connected by a tunnel, brand new tunnel, from that complex, from the downtown complex, to the train station that we are building, which is just a short distance, so they can walk to the station. Or we'll create bicycle lanes if they want to bicycle. So those are the kind of things happening which love to talk to you in more details, but I don't think this is the time or the place to do that. But as I said, I want to link our IITM with SSF and make that link work for both sides. And some of those areas, I've talked to many of the researchers, the centers of excellence, the incubations centers that are going on, and I think there are a number of potential connections that can be built. We have a fusion of data analysis, data sciences, and biological sciences now, which will create new directions, new products coming up in the future at a reasonable cost, at a fast speed. And those kind of things will happen by breaking down the silos. Not really looking at the silos of training and education, but looking at the problems and what solutions are required. And I think I'm so happy to talk to your faculty and your director. That's exactly the thinking going on in IIT Madras. I don't know how many other IITs are following that, but this one institute, IIT Madras, has already, in my mind, years ahead of others in making those things happen. And I want to congratulate all of you for providing that thinking and breaking the bureaucracy. I'm sure that there is a lot of bureaucracy going on. And I want to just end up by saying, one of my good friends is Deshpande. He is also an IIT alumni. He lives close to us in the Bay Area. And I was talking to him about coming down here. As a matter of fact, he was here last week or something. And he sent me this email, and I quote him. And he said, as you know, relationships takes time. We should set an expectation that we need to have sustained effort in building the relationship between faculty and students with companies globally. This connection is very important to make innovation relevant to the world so that research effort can have economic and social impact. Thank you for your effort. I really want to add my thank you to all of you for doing such a wonderful job. I'm so excited to be here. My last 2 days have been really beautiful days. I wish I had more hours in those 2 days to spend with all of you and talk to you more. I could only talk on a very surfacey level, but some of your people are so inspiring. We can spend weeks talking to them. But congratulations for being a part of that illustrious institution like IIT Madras, and partially to make that institute where I graduated 50-some years ago make so successful, all because of your efforts. There's a question at the back. Yes.
Congratulations, Dr. Pradeep. I'm very happy that I'm also an alumni.
All right, all right.
66
Yes, we are brothers.
2 years after you graduated,
Yes.
66 back. I would just like to ask you one simple question. Do you find that being a mayor in San Francisco South, you are more happy than if you had been a professor in Harvard University?
I can only guess because I never was a professor at Purdue University, so I have no idea how much fun I would have had at that time. But I can tell you on this side of the story, being the mayor or having worked in the industry, I'm so happy. I'm working harder than I ever did before. I'm having enjoyment more than ever in my work. And I'm able to, like Venki said, Sometimes the fun is giving more than taking in. And at this stage of my life, I think giving is very important to me. Every day is so satisfying. And that's why I compare my job as council member or mayor as a teacher's job, professor's job. Every day you teach one person a new concept and you see the twinkle in the eye of that student, you made that day for the professor. When you improve somebody's value of life, when you make somebody understand something that was not clear before, that's the essence. But to answer your question in a more succinct way, I think I was made to be in that way, to proceed. Somebody up there decided whether I should be professor or I should not be a professor. So I can't compare. Thank you very much. Any other question? Yes.
How do you feel the trend? Is it healthy for the democracy or how is it?
Oh, it is healthy for the democracy because they will create messages and they will be able to create channels for you to understand the message that different candidates have. The downside is playing the game. I think playing the game is a wrong thing. So I don't know these campaign managers, whether they are managing campaign in order to keep the budgets and the expenses controlled by things that are going on, or they are managing the campaign to make it tilted, okay? So I would say, depending on the campaign manager, I won't either say that practice is good or bad. Does that make sense? All right. Any other question? Yes.
My dad went to the US to do his postgraduate, and then he worked there as well. When I was born there, and when it was time to do my schooling, he brought me back to India so I could do it here. I asked him why he did that, and he says the schooling system here is much better. I wanted to know what you think about that.
He was right. He was right. He was right. He was right. I think that while the universities and institutes are world class in US, some of the schooling system, public schooling system has fallen behind, especially in the areas of sciences. So math and analytical sciences, they have kind of fallen behind in the world ranking. So I think schooling is better in India. That's why in every single public school in America, the first two positions are always occupied by either an Indian or a Chinese student.
We'll take a couple more questions, if any.
Any questions? Here's the time. Ask me embarrassing question, I'm okay. If not, I want to thank you all very much for coming and joining with me. Thanks for your time, and I had a great enjoyable time. And continue flourishing our IIT Madras as you have done so far. And we'll be here next year with all kind of new connections with South San Francisco. Thank you all.
We have a... So this is a cartoon made by... this is a cartoon made by Mr. Pradeep Gupta when he was in his... when he was in IIT Madras here. So we thought we'll officially get a signature on this cartoon to display this in our Heritage Center.
That was in 4th year. We had a competition of cartoons.
I request Professor Nagarajan to please give the token of gratitude.